Hello everybody and welcome to another one of my vlogs about my Leicas. The two cameras that you can see now, you've seen these before, and I'm just using these as a sort of an introduction to a really rather strange story which involves a much earlier Leica that I once owned. Now on the left here is a Leica 3C dating from 1940. And on the right here is a Leica 3C dating from 1950, spanning the 10 years production of the Leica 3C. Now, I think I've previously mentioned this on one of my other vlogs that I did, so I'm going to move these out of the way now, and I want to show you another photograph. This is just a photograph, it's on a clipboard. I've gone to huge expense to buy a clipboard because I do these uploads without any editing and so on, straight from the hip, and this is the easiest way of doing this. So what I've done, I've invested heavily in a clipboard, and I've even gone as far as to print some one photograph and then some downloads from the net. Now, I think I've shown you this before. This is a Leica that I once owned back in the 70s. I bought it in around about 1975 and I sold it about 10 years later. It's actually a 1942 Leica 3C, and if I turn the image around like so, you'll notice it's got the K, the letter K after the serial number. This indicates that this camera has what's sometimes referred to as a full race ball bearing shutter, and these were so fitted to make them more efficient in low temperatures. There was less chance, I think, of the mechanism jamming or whatever, and the 3CKs are actually quite sought after. I didn't know that when I had the camera. You have to remember that when I bought this camera, and also during its whole ownership, it was light years before the internet, where information like this now can be often gleaned within seconds. It was different then, and I just had this down as a Leica 3C. I bought it from a camera shop in Birmingham, and 10 years later I sold it on. It did have one or two faults, but I think I sold it via exchange in March, and I think I featured this camera before. Well, it's actually got quite an interesting history, and I've often wondered what happened to this camera. Did it still exist or whatever? And this is the only photograph I have of it, and it was taken not long after I bought it at my parents' home. So this photograph would have been taken in the 1970s, and it was actually taken with the Pentax Spotmatic 2. Now, I belong to, and if anybody is a Facebook member and you're interested in Leicas, it's well worth becoming a member of this. There's a Facebook Leica collectors group, and I posted this particular image on that site, and I mentioned that it had some odd markings on the back, and I'd mentioned that I'd sold it back in the mid-80s. So when I bought it, I bought it 47 years ago, and I sold it 37 years ago, if that makes sense. But I did say I haven't got the camera, and it did have some unusual markings on the back. Well, by a really strange set of circumstances, a chap on the group said, "Here she is," and he posted these details. I can't remember the chap's name, I wish I could, but anyway, lo and behold, and I'll turn this back the other way around and I will flick the image over, and this is the image that he posted, and that's it. Notice the serial number, exactly the same, 387176K, and there it is in an auction, and it gives details of the markings on the back, because when I had the camera, I don't remember exactly what was marked on the back. I do remember quite distinctly it had two small SS flashes that had been scratched into the satin chrome on the back, and I do vaguely remember there were some other markings, but I couldn't really recall them. But there's the camera, and this camera was auctioned in 2012. And this particular image I've downloaded from the auction site, because the chap who found this, he put these images up on his page. He posted them to the Leica collectors group. So I've got him to thank for these images, but these are actually images taken by the auction house. Just let me flick across another page. Now, the auction house also uploaded these, and these are the markings to which I refer. You can see that there's two SS flashes, and they've partly been sort of scratched out, but when I had the camera, I'd forgotten the fact that at some point it's been converted to flash, because it's got the flash socket there. But when I owned the camera, I didn't question that at all. I didn't know it was a conversion. I didn't know the K on the end of it meant a lot. It's easy to learn things like this now, but back in those days it wasn't. And anyway, I always suspected these markings had been put on by, I don't know, somebody after the war as a sort of a joke. Not a joke, not in particularly good taste, but people do things like that. I really didn't put any particular significance on those markings at all. However, of course, remember I sold the camera in 1985, and this is what the auction house. I'm just going to remove these, make things a little bit easier. This is what the auction house put as their details. It said an extremely rare original chrome 3CK engraved K and hand engraved SS KBA 169 in brackets Waffen SS war correspondent on the top plate with original ball bearing shutter. Total production only 50 cameras. Now I think that refers to the satin finish, because the camera, a lot of the 3CKs, because there were material shortages, that they often were like finished in a grey or a black colour. I've never seen one in the flesh, but I've seen photographs of them. Well, this one wasn't. It was finished in satin, and I think that's what the reference is to 50 cameras. There were 50 cameras just made in this particular finish. It says 100% original condition, delivered to Berlin on September the 15th, 1942. And there's the order delivery number with matching scimitar engraved K on the barrel. Now, this is the interesting bit, because the lens that you've seen on my photograph wasn't that lens, so it's obviously been matched up to a different lens. The lens was delivered in March 5th, 1942, and there's also the delivery number. And it says a matching black Bakelite front cap. I don't remember anything like that, because I suspect that that's not the lens. In fact, I'm pretty certain, because if we look, the auction house have also uploaded a photograph. This all took place in 2012, right? So there you can see the K quite distinctly, but if we go back to the photograph I took of it, there isn't a K. At least I know it's in the shadow, but I don't think there's a K there. So I'm going to assume that the lens has been changed. And the chap who uploaded the pictures as well to Facebook also mentioned the fact that the lens is different. So there it is, but presumably with a different lens. And let's, what else have I copied out? Yeah, that's just a larger image so that you can see the K and so on and so forth. So this camera certainly does still exist, which is something I've often wondered about. So it's very much in existence, and it's got rather a, what shall we say, an interesting history. As I've said, getting information like this back then was, well, it wasn't there. The information wasn't there at all. And interestingly, I've tried to do research about Leicas with sort of hand engraved markings on the back myself, and there is a photograph on the internet of such an example, and it's this one. And when I looked at that, first of all, so many months before this Facebook upload by this chap who'd found all this out, I'd looked at this image and I thought, yeah, that's very much like the one on that camera I had. It looks very, very familiar. Well, of course it looked familiar because it was it. And every time I tried to search for an image of a Leica with unusual hand engraving on the back, it's just this image that keeps popping up. So I'd love to see another example. As I said earlier, when I bought the camera, I didn't see that as, let's put that one there. I didn't see those markings as anything particularly significant, and I doubt whether anybody else did either. Certainly the camera dealer I bought it from in 1975 didn't, because what's happened, I think, really Leica collecting and appreciating these sort of cameras, I think there's always been a market for Leicas because they're a quality camera. But I don't think, even when I sold it in 1985, I don't know what it would have gone for. Had I have known what these markings and how significant they were, I don't know. But why were these markings put on? Well, the theory is that these cameras, incidentally, are not classed as military. And obviously this camera was given to a war correspondent, probably for taking photographs of the maybe things going on in Germany during World War II. That would be the natural assumption. But these markings were put on often because it's just simply like a sort of inventory number. Obviously the two lightning flashes from KBA, we know what those are, but probably the 169 might be an inventory number. Simply to recognise the camera, just in exactly the same way that companies buy bits of equipment and they stick a number on it. I mean, some of them like paint it properly or whatever and mark it, but this was just done. You can see I think that's been done with a hand engraving. Where's my little cocktail stick? You can actually see the sort of dots there, whereas this I don't know. Yeah, I think probably that's been done with a hand engraver as well. One of those tools that I think you can still buy them now. Yeah, and I think those have as well. And at some point, that's actually been scratched out. And really, I mean, that's the camera. So what else was I going to say? I made a couple of little mark. Yeah, this particular illustration actually probably appears in a book that I'd love to get hold of, but it's really, really expensive. It's written by a chap called Jim or James Leica, who I think is an American, and he's sort of written the ultimate book on Leica history. And I believe that this image is in his book, although I'm not absolutely 100% certain about that. But this image will keep cropping up on the internet, and it's odd to think that I once owned that camera, and thought nothing of this. But for want of repeating myself, information like this is so much easier to get hold of now. So it poses a couple of questions, really. It certainly answered my one question. Does it still exist? Well, it most certainly does, and it exists in somebody's collection. And so that's the one question it answers, but it doesn't. What was it? How did it end up in 1975 in a Birmingham, UK camera shop, who happened to have a cabinet full of second-hand cameras? So basically, that's this really, I think, quite unusual story and a bit of a coincidence. In fact, when I first read the posts, when this chap had found it and said, "Here she is," it actually knocked me back a little bit. It answered my question. Yes, it does exist, but also it's probably in some respects not. Well, it certainly it appeared on an auction site in 2012, and it was actually auctioned in 2012, and the selling price, according to the what I can find on the internet, it was sold for €6,500, which is a considerable sum of money. It wouldn't. I don't know when I sold it if it have had that sort of. Well, it wouldn't have had that much value because obviously we've got to take into account inflation. But I just wonder, even then, would it have sold for any more than a normal Leica 3C? As I say, it had a few problems. It needed some attention. I don't know where Leicas like this sought after 37 years ago when I sold it. I don't know. Would I still like it? Well, yes and no. And I say that because, yes, it would be a most interesting camera as I suppose, a conversation piece. But at the same time, this camera may well have had it may well have had quite a dark history. I mean, what sites did it see? I don't know. Nobody knows. But anyway, that I think is probably it's like an odd bit of your past smacking you in the face and things like that. And it's I think it's a bit almost spooky in a sense, but maybe that's over the top. But you know what I mean, I'm sure. So yeah, it answers my question. Yes, the camera does exist. Yes, somebody paid rather a lot of money for it. Whether they've ever had it CLA'd, I don't know. How many owners it's had since I sold it, I don't know. Where is it now? I don't know. But anyway, lots and lots of don't knows, but there you go. So that's probably the most interesting and sort of, I won't say famous, but it's certainly the most interesting Leica I'm ever likely to own, and I no longer own it. So am I bothered? Well, as I said, yes and no. So anyway, that's it, folks. I hope you've enjoyed that. And I'll see you soon. I think I might do another vlog maybe in a week or two, looking at in more detail about some of the lenses on these cameras and their history. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Take care, keep safe, and is there anything else before I go that I need to mention? Because I do make notes. No, I think that might be it. Yeah, so any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Always look forward to your comments. I think there might have been a couple of new members since the last vlog. If you're one of them, welcome. And I'll see you all soon. So take care, stay safe. Bye for now.